This is our Forex blog for Monday, May 23rd, 2011. And like most days, we really want to buy the strong pairs against the weak ones. Today, the dollar and the yen were clearly the strongest. The real-time strength, the dollar was the strongest consistently, and the yen was second strongest. Daily, weekly, monthly trends stronger on the dollar than the yen. The euro was one of the weaker ones today, the pound as well, and the Australian. So you want to sell the Australian dollar and the Australian yen today. You want to sell the euro dollar and euro yen up until about 5:30, and you also want to sell the pound dollar and pound yen. Let's look at some of these charts. Okay, sorry for the delay. We're going to start with the euro dollar. You want to look to sell this, and you can see it fell last night even. Late Friday, fell last night, and it's right near the lower containment band. So this is one of those things where you want to sell it, but it's also possibly down too much. Here's the Fibonacci profit target, which I did analysis on last night, and it was the low of the day. So usually price doesn't go through these, and if it does, it stops at the second fib target, which might be 20, 30, or 40 pips underneath there. We also had a trend reversal triangle here, which means the market's going to reverse at some point. You don't know when. Usually when it's underneath the lower containment band, you can draw your fibs on there, look to buy here. You got a nice little 25 pip counter trend buy, and then on this next wave, the fib target also lined up with my overnight fib target. I would have put on a double lot trade here and rode that up at least 20 or 30 pips until it went sideways right there. But the euro dollar was weak. You can see the real-time weakness here on the down bars, much more than on the up bars. So any of these counter trend trades are just for quick 5, 10, 15 pips. In a perfect world, you want to find a weak currency, but you don't want it to be underneath the lower white band, because usually it tends to reverse, and it doesn't usually go more than 25 or 30 pips underneath there. Let's look at the euro yen, which was also weak earlier. Now this one's a better trade in my opinion, because it's not at the beginning of the day underneath the lower band. It becomes so after 3 o'clock, but you start to have a lot of weakness right here. You get a little bit of a up move right here. It's underneath the previous day's low, and there's almost no strength. So when this thing breaks down right here at 2 o'clock, it's a great trade. And notice, as soon as you're short, just extreme weakness comes in and it falls 25, 35 pips. It kind of goes sideways here, and you have a little bit of a pullback here. You might have shorted, or you might have shorted the low, and you can see again it falls down here with incredible weakness. There's no real strength that comes in until about right here. And again, once it's underneath the lower containment band, usually you can buy a double bottom. This one went, I draw these fibs and it gets plotted away from the middle line. My fib level is 23, and it went about 30 pips underneath there. So like I said, usually currencies don't go too far underneath my fib targets. But even if you wanted to look for a counter trend trade, you draw your trend lines over the bars high, and when it gets broken, then you get in. And the second one was even better, because it broke. We had a counter trend buy signal right here on the bar before the breakout, and it broke out, and you had incredible strength all the way up until about right here. So on that counter trend trade there, you could have made about 60 pips in a very short amount of time. So that's how you do counter trend. Our focus in the blog is mostly trend trading now. We have a weak Australian, so let's show the Australian dollar and Australian yen. You can see this one, continued to go down. My fib target held for 2 hours, briefly broke underneath there and bounced, and then, like I said, usually if it does go through the first fib target, the second fib target is, very likely to be the low. In these fib targets, if they're way underneath the lower containment band, they tend to act as better support than if the containment band's right at or underneath the fib target. So it's possible it could go lower than this. If you were trading the Australian dollar live now, you would want to draw your fibs on that last wave down. Let me fix the top one here. And wherever that fib price target is down there is where you want to buy. You can easily see below price chart by going to our minimum price here and saying, let's say 25%. It will add padding to the bottom of the chart, and now you can see where the next possible buy area is, 1.0460 to, let's say, 50. So it's got to go down another 28 to 38 pips. You also have the monthly pivot level here. More than likely, you can check my prediction out later in today, but I would say it's not likely to go below 1.0450, and that's where I'd start scaling into a buy here, expecting a 20 to 50 pip counter trend, reversal. And sometimes these take hours to reverse, but it doesn't pop 30 to 50 pips in 5 to 15 minutes. Usually it takes 1 to 5 hours to do that. Let's look at the Australian yen. Now again, this one in my opinion is a better short earlier today because it's underneath the hourly, it shows up as weak, and it's not, earlier in the morning, it's not way down here near the lower containment band. Notice my second fib target did hold the price here, and you did get that nice little 50 pip bounce here and 25 pip bounce here, and we're down there again. The third time any kind of support level gets hit, it's much more likely to go through it. So I have no problem buying a support level the first time. I prefer to buy it at a double bottom, but I rarely ever buy a triple bottom. I'd much prefer it to go lower, draw my fibs off of this, and somewhere down near 85.50 to 40 is where I would get in at the third time, but not here. It could shoot up 50 or 100 pips, but it's a risky trade to buy at the third bottom or to sell the third high. In other words, look, I'll show that in regular class today. That's it for today's blog. I'm going to do our regular class now.